Judas Iscariot. The name itself is synonymous with betrayal. For 2,000 years, he's been history's ultimate villain, the man who sold his friend for 30 pieces of silver. His story is so ingrained in our culture that his name has become a common noun for a traitor. We all know what he did. But the question that has echoed through the centuries is why? What could possibly motivate a trusted friend, one of Jesus's hand-picked inner circle, to commit such a monumental act of treachery? Was it simple greed? Was it political disillusionment? Or was there something deeper, more complex, and perhaps even more tragic at play? To understand Judas, we have to look beyond the final fateful act and explore the man behind the myth. Let's rewind. The Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all introduced Judas as one of the 12 apostles. This wasn't just a casual follower. This was a core member of Jesus' movement. He was there for the miracles. He heard the Sermon on the Mount firsthand. He walked, ate, and lived with Jesus day in and day out for years. John's Gospel adds a specific detail. Judas was the group's treasurer, the one who held the money bag. This tells us he was likely educated, numerate, and, at least initially, trusted. But John also paints a darker picture, accusing Judas of being a thief who helped himself to the funds. This early detail suggests a character flaw, a weakness for money that would later have catastrophic consequences. If this is true, then the story of Judas becomes a cautionary tale about how small private sins can fester and grow into something monstrous. But is greed the whole story? 30 pieces of silver, according to scholars, was the standard price for a slave. It wasn't a king's ransom. For a man entrusted with the group's finances, it seems like a relatively small price for such an infamous betrayal. This has led many historians and theologians to look for other motives. One compelling theory revolves around politics. At the time, Judea was under Roman occupation. Many Jews were waiting for a Messiah who would be a powerful military and political leader, a king like David, who would drive out the Romans and restore Israel as sovereignty. Perhaps Judas, like many others, initially believed Jesus was this Messiah. He saw the miracles, the growing crowds, the revolutionary teachings. He might have thought, this is the one who will lead the rebellion. But Jesus wasn't that kind of Messiah. He spoke of a kingdom not of this world, of loving your enemies, of turning the other cheek. This message of peace and spiritual salvation might have been deeply disappointing to someone expecting a political revolution. Imagine Judas's growing frustration. He might have seen Jesus' entry into Jerusalem on a donkey, not a war horse, as a sign of weakness. He might have felt that Jesus was squandering his power and letting a golden opportunity slip away. In this view, the betrayal wasn't about money at all. It was an attempt to force Jesus' hand. Perhaps Judas believed that if Jesus were arrested, he would be compelled to finally unleash his divine power, call down legions of angels, overthrow the authorities, and start the long-awaited uprising. The kiss in the garden, in this light, isn't just a sign of betrayal, but a desperate, misguided attempt to trigger the revolution he so badly wanted. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. Then there's another, darker interpretation, presented most starkly in the Gospel of John. This view suggests that Judas was not just a flawed man, but a pawn in a cosmic battle between good and evil. John explicitly states that Satan entered into him. This frames the betrayal not as a human decision born of greed or political frustration, but as an act of supernatural evil. Jesus himself seems to hint at this, saying, "Have I not chosen you, the 12? Yet one of you is a devil." This perspective removes much of Judas's personal agency, casting him as a tragic figure destined to play a terrible role in a divine plan. He becomes a necessary instrument for the fulfillment of prophecy. The sacrifice of Jesus couldn't happen without the betrayal. This idea is explored in controversial texts like the Gospel of Judas, a Gnostic text rediscovered in the 20th century. In that version, Judas is portrayed not as a traitor, but as the most enlightened disciple who betrays Jesus at his own request to help him escape his physical body. While this text is not accepted as canonical by mainstream Christianity, It shows how people have struggled for centuries to reconcile the idea of a loving disciple with the act of betrayal. What happened after the betrayal is just as revealing as what happened before. The Gospels of Matthew and Acts give us two different but equally grim accounts of his end. Matthew tells us that when Judas saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse. He tried to return the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests, crying, "I have sinned, for I have betrayed innocent blood." But they dismissed him. His guilt was his own to bear. In a state of utter despair, Judas threw the money into the temple and went out and hanged himself. This is a portrait of a man completely crushed by the weight of his actions. His regret was real, but it led to despair, not repentance. It's a tragic ending. He realized the horror of what he'd done, but saw no way out. The book of Acts offers an even more graphic account, written by Luke. It says that with the payment he received for his wickedness, Judas bought a field. There he fell headlong, his body burst open, and all his intestines spilled out. This field became known as Akeldama, the field of blood. While the details differ, the outcome is the same: a violent, dishonorable death. Both stories paint a picture of a man who could not live with himself. Unlike Peter, who denied Jesus 3 times but was overcome with remorse and was later forgiven and restored, Judas was consumed by his guilt. His story serves as a dark counterpoint, a warning about the destructive power of despair. So, who was Judas Iscariot? Was he a greedy thief who sold his master for a pittance? A zealous nationalist who tried to force a revolution and failed? A tragic puppet in a cosmic drama, destined for a terrible fate? Or simply a man who made a catastrophic mistake and was crushed by a guilt he couldn't bear? The truth is, we will never know for sure. The biblical accounts leave room for all of these interpretations. He remains a complex and enigmatic figure, a puzzle at the very heart of the Christian story. His character is a mirror, reflecting our own questions about faith, failure, free will, and the possibility of redemption. What his story forces us to confront is a difficult truth: the line between loyalty and betrayal, between faith and disillusionment, can sometimes be terrifyingly thin, and a single choice, born of whatever motive, can change the course of history. Thank you for watching. If you found this exploration interesting, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into historical figures.